All right, welcome back to Penatchie Productions. Today's video, we're going to go over some different calling scenarios and help you better understand what we're thinking when we're calling, based off different scenarios, and give you an understanding of the way we do things when it comes to calling. So hope y'all enjoy. So when it comes to turkey hunting in relation to calling, I think you've got kind of 4 different time periods throughout the day. You got right off the roost, you've got mid-morning, you've got afternoon, and you've got pre-fly up. That's kind of the 4 periods in which you go through a day as you're turkey hunting. And the calling in those different scenarios kind of differs. In today's video, we're going to talk about off the roost, which is probably, in my opinion, the most important, maybe even the most difficult in a lot of ways. So I'm going to give you some thoughts and input, what's going through my head when it comes to off the roost calling, and I'm going to demonstrate some different calling scenarios for you, and just kind of give you an understanding of you know, what goes through my head when it comes to how I'm calling to a turkey off the roost. So real quick before we get started, I think it's important to mention the fact that, you know, when it comes to off the roost, you know, calling to a turkey off the roost, like I said, is probably the most difficult. This is when they're going to have their hens with them more times than not. They're going to fly down with their hens. They're going to stay with their hens for a few hours. So being close to the turkey is important, within range of the turkey, you know, in about a 250-yard range of the turkey is important to me, in my opinion, especially early in the season when they, you know, tend to have more hens with them than they do in later seasons. I think it's also super important to note that, you know, these turkeys are going to act completely different than they do, again, later in the season. These turkeys are going to pitch down, and they're going to have probably 10 to 12 hens with them at times. Whereas later in the season, they may only have 1 hen or 2 hens, and sometimes no hens at all with them at you know, later parts in the season. So I think it's important to read the room. I heard Dave Owens say that one time, and it kind of stuck with me. And that's kind of my you know, my saying when it comes to calling a turkey off the roost, is to read the room. And we're going to talk about that when it comes to the scenarios. But when you've got turkeys around you, it's important to understand what they're doing. If you've got hens that are cackling and cutting and yelping, then you need to imitate them. If you've got turkeys that are not making any sound at all, then it's best to probably not cackle and cut and yelp and be loud and obnoxious. You know, turkeys are doing what they're doing because of how they're comfortable, or the weather, or what it may be. So it's important to just kind of understand what they're doing, read that room, kind of gauge their temperature and where they're at, and then, you know, to use your calling likewise of what they're doing. So I think off the roost, you know, is vitally important to understand that, and to use that to your advantage. I don't know how the audio turns out, but I want to apologize for the wind noise. It's a little windy today. It's middle of February, so it's a little breezy and chilly out here today. But anyways, kind of the first scenario I think you'll come across when it comes to off the roost is you're going to have a gobbler. He's going to be gobbling, and you're going to have several hens along that bird, yelping with him, cutting with him, and whatever. It's kind of early season flocked up period, is what you can kind of consider it to be. So let's say you've got several hens with this bird. They're cutting, they're yelping, they're fly down cackling. There's a lot of turkeys together. I think this scenario you can kind of attack a little more aggressively. Again, read the room. If the hens are cutting, you can cut. If they're yelping, you should yelp. But I think you should start off quietly, and we'll talk about it in a minute, and kind of work your way up. But I'm going to give you, again, what I would do as far as calling scenario goes, if there's a lot of hens with a gobbler and it's early in the season. All right, well, we've now changed locations. It was blowing 70 mile an hour up there where I was at, and the camera was shaking around, and I'm sure the audio wasn't great, so I decided to move down here before we started calling. So what I'll do when it comes to this particular scenario is I'll start out with quiet tree yelps, just like they were doing. You know, I'll kind of mix in some louder yelps and maybe a little cutting, and then before a hen flies down, you'll hear before she starts to fly down and cackle, she'll start getting kind of agitated, like kind of nervous. She'll start cutting a little bit. You can kind of sense that she's nervous, the way she's sounding is what I'm saying. So kind of do some small, softer cuts. And then I'll do a fly down cackle, hit the ground, and a lot of times when a hen hits the ground like that with a bunch of turkeys around her, she's not going to immediately start yelping loud and cutting and being obnoxious. She's going to hit the ground, she's going to cluck and purr for a little while, feed, and then what I would do is I'd tell you again, give it about 10 to 15 minutes. When this hen hits the ground that you're imitating, cluck and purr softly, see what how that turkey reacts to it, And if they're not getting any reaction at all, I think your best bet is to probably start trying to agitate the hens a little bit that he's got with him. Start cutting, start getting excited and seeing what they do, and maybe that'll bring that bird to you. So we're gonna kind of run through that scenario here and give you a better understanding of how to call to a turkey in this scenario. All right, well, there you go. So again, started off with some tree yelps. I know my tree yelping isn't great. And then we kind of move into, a hen getting agitated, ready to fly off the limb. And then she pitches down. She's content, she's happy. Maybe if a hen starts cutting and yelping in the distance, you cut right back at her and yelp at her. That's what I was doing there at the end, excited hen yelping and cutting. So that scenario, I'm gonna be honest with you, about a 30% success rate. Normally, if you've got a bird that flies down with hens that he's not gobbling, your best bet's probably to go home, go get something to eat, come back in a few hours, and try him again. Maybe he won't have his hens then, but it's hard to pull a turkey away from hens like that, but that's probably your best bet off the roost. So, again, I think that's probably one of the more difficult ones. The next one is a lot easier of a scenario. Let's say you get up under this bird. Let's say you're 250 yards away from this bird. He's gobbling his brains out. He ain't got any hens with him, from what you know. But as soon as you start yelping to him in the tree, you hear a hen start going. Let's say, let's say in this scenario, there's that you can hear there's one hen calling back to you. So at this point, you probably assume he's got a hen with him, probably no more than that. So in this scenario, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna continue to call to this bird while he's in the tree. And we'll talk about later in this video that I don't particularly like doing that, and we'll talk about why. But let's say this bird's in the tree. You hear the hen, you call to him while he's in the tree. You you hear this hen continuing to call to you. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna hit the ground first. I'm not gonna do a fly down cackle in this scenario. The only time I will do a fly down cackle, for the most part, now it does kind of change, but for the most part is when I'm calling to a bigger group of turkeys. If I'm by myself and there's maybe 1 or 2 birds, I'm not gonna normally do a fly down cackle. Neither will those turkeys that you're gonna hear fly down normally. So that's why I don't. So I'm gonna do a fly down with a wing or my hat or whatever. I'm gonna hit the ground and I'm gonna immediately hit the ground and start losing it. Cutting, yelping, doing whatever I can to get these birds on the ground as quick as I can and hopefully pull this bird to me. The quicker I can get that longbeard out the tree and to me, the better chance I have of killing him. If that hen hits the ground before I hit the ground and he goes to that hen, game's over for the morning at least. Go find another bird. So this bird, let's say we hit the ground, this bird is in the tree, we're trying to get him to come quickly. So what I'll do is I'll continue to call to him in the tree. I'm not going to do a fly down with a wing. That's kind of self-explanatory, or with your hat or whatever. And as soon as I hit the ground, I'm going to get excited and start losing it. And hopefully this bird reacts the right way and comes to me. If he hits the ground and goes quiet, I'm going to sit there for about an hour, give him some time. But if he don't come, I'm getting up and I'm leaving, and I'll come back in a few hours and check him again. And probably in a few hours we can kill him. So I'll give you this scenario. You know, again, that's just, you know, there's a bird and he's got a hen, and you trying to get on the ground quicker than she does. Maybe once you start calling to her, she starts getting excited, so you start cutting back at her really aggressively or whatever. Again, that's kind of a what if calling scenario. That doesn't happen as much as I will say the first one does and this last one does. So the way I will primarily call to a turkey on the roost, even if he maybe has hens at times, very rarely do I call to a turkey in the tree if I can help it. I like to wait till that bird hits the ground. You know, if he's got hens, I kind of feel rushed and I kind of feel like I have to call, which again, that's probably not even the right thing to do still. But when a bird's in the tree, I just try not to call to him. I like for him to hit the ground, get comfortable, and then I want to call. So again, fly down cackling is something I won't do very often. If I do a fly down per se, I'll use my hat or a wing to imitate a bird hitting the ground. And you know, normally, like I said, if I've got a bird by himself, I'm gonna hit the ground as a hen turkey, and I'm gonna be quiet. I'm gonna I'm gonna call very softly. You know, I'm gonna cluck, I'm gonna purr, I may softly yelp. I may even throw a cut or two in there, very quietly, of course. And you know, that if that bird's by himself and he's lonely, he's gonna come to you. Now let's say there's a bird in a tree with a hen or two. I hit the ground, I'm calling, and nothing really happens. More times than not, I'll just let that bird be. I really won't push the envelope too much, as I have the understanding of what I've learned from past turkey seasons is that when that bird hits the ground with a hen and you give him a few hours, that bird's gonna lose that hen. She's not gonna stay with him all day. She may come back to him at the end of the day to roost with him, but more times than not, those birds will separate throughout the day. So again, this is an example. This next scenario I'm going to do, let's just say you're sitting there, bird starts gobbling, you think he's lonely. So what I'm going to do in that scenario is no fly down cackle, maybe not even a fly down with a wing. I'm gonna be a turkey on the ground. I'm gonna call to him, yelp. I'm gonna cut a little bit. I'm gonna cluck and purr, scratching the leaves. And if that bird answers a cluck and a purr, or even a soft yelp, there's no reason to cut at that bird or start yelping at him loudly. There just is no reason. If that bird hears you clucking and purring, he gobbles that, you've got about I'd say 75% chance to kill that turkey. If he's lonely and he's gobbling that kind of stuff, get ready, because that bird's coming. So I'm gonna do that scenario. This is the last one. So here's this scenario. All right, well, there you go. There's kind of how I would approach calling to a turkey off the roost with 3 different scenarios that I think you could, all possibly see all 3 of those. So that's kind of how I do it off the roost. That's by no means right. It's just kind of the way that I approach it. I'm not a great turkey caller by any means, certainly not the best, but that's kind of my philosophy on how I'll call to a bird off the roost. So hope y'all learned something, and hope y'all enjoyed.